record.
Madam Chair, is going to be a vote on the motion?
I'm sorry, I'm having some issues with my phone. I couldn't join through my computer, but yes, I think Caroline moved to approve the minutes. There was a second. I don't know if you had anything else to add. I think Alicia seconded and I did at the same time.
And Eric is abstaining.
So my question is there a vote on the motion, Madam Chair?
Yes.
We move to a vote, right?
Can you all vote in the chat if you can? If you're on your phone, you can just tell me.
Okay, perfect. I'm sorry. My phone is being a little bit difficult with me. Okay, so I know we had on the agenda that was passed around that we were going to go over, that we're going to have the presentation for the OLO report. So if you want to get that started, Carlos, we can move on to that.
Carlos, I had a question. Do we have a quorum?
I believe we do. I believe we have 7 commissioners. Oh, we have more now. I see Jerome just joined.
Jerome's here. Mm-hmm.
So we definitely have a quorum now. As of now, to approve the minutes, it was six ayes, 1 abstention. So it would pass based on having a quorum and the majority of PAC members voting to approve.
Thank you, Carlos.
Yeah. So yeah, we have Blaise DeFazio and Leslie Rubin here from the Office of Legislative Oversight, and they will be presenting on their report that went into the feasibility of moving traffic enforcement from the Montgomery County Police Department to Montgomery County Department of Transportation. So Leslie and Blaise, I'll hand it over to you. If you need to share your screen, I believe you can. So yeah.
Okay, thanks, Carlos. Yeah, we're just going to give a short presentation and then we're going to answer questions right after that. Okay. Okay, good evening. My name is Blaise DeFazio, along with Leslie Rubin with the Office of Legislative Oversight. We appreciate this opportunity to brief the Police Advisory Committee on OLO Report 2021-10. The Council requested this report to better understand how traffic enforcement operates in the county, review how other jurisdictions administer traffic enforcement, and whether it's feasible to reassign traffic enforcement from the Montgomery County Police Department, or MCPD, to the Department of Transportation, or DOT. First, I'm going to give an overview of Vision Zero and traffic enforcement. Vision Zero is a strategy to eliminate all traffic fatalities and severe injuries while increasing safe, healthy, equitable mobility for all. Vision Zero's core philosophy is that serious and fatal traffic crashes are unacceptable, preventable, and the design, construction, and maintenance of the roadway system can minimize the consequences of human error with a focus on equity. The county's primary strategy for achieving its Vision Zero goals is through roadway design and operation, led by the county's Department of Transportation. While roadway design and operation is key, education and training, traffic enforcement, and traffic incident management play supporting roles in implementing Vision Zero. Vision Zero's approach to in-person traffic enforcement is for officers to focus enforcement on the driving behaviors most likely to lead to collisions, such as speeding and aggressive driving, not yielding the right-of-way, and impaired driving. In the United States, traffic stops are by far the most common reason for interaction between police officers and the public. For this report, we distinguish between traffic stops for the unsafe driving behaviors or collision contributing violations and traffic stops for other types of violations, such as stops for minor driving violations, expired registrations, or equipment malfunctions. This is where an officer had authority to make a stop because of a technical violation of the traffic code, but not because drivers were driving in a dangerous or unsafe manner. This distinction will be relevant at different points in this presentation. As for the laws governing traffic enforcement, the Maryland Vehicle Law sets out rules on items such as issuance of driver's licenses, rules of the road, vehicle inspections, the powers of local authorities, and enforcement of the law. In Maryland, jurisdictions are allowed to use two primary types of traffic enforcement: in-person enforcement, where police officers stop drivers for traffic violations, and automated enforcement using cameras, such as speed and red light cameras, to record traffic violations and then send citations to those drivers. Maryland law authorizes only sworn police officers and law enforcement departments to enforce traffic laws or operate automated traffic enforcement programs. Consequently, MCPD conducts in-person traffic enforcement in the county and operates the county's automated enforcement programs. Under Maryland law, local law enforcement departments primarily enforce state-set traffic laws. Traffic officers conduct approximately 20% of MCPD's in-person traffic enforcement in the county, and the general patrol officers conduct approximately 80%. Working with the Vision Zero coordinator in 2020, MCPD refocused its traffic officers toward enforcement of driving violations most likely to result in crashes. MCPD and Vision Zero use data to identify the locations in the county that contribute to high numbers of injuries, called high injury networks, and target them with increased traffic enforcement. In July 2021, MCPD centralized traffic enforcement by moving traffic squad officers from district stations to a new central unit to increase efficiency in deployment and enforcement, with a continued focus on enforcing traffic laws related to the most dangerous violations. The unit uses data to identify areas for enforcement, and it focuses on outreach and education to help change dangerous roadway behaviors. MCPD has the authority to direct the work and practices of its officers. For example, MCPD's prioritization of traffic stops for collision contributing violations by officers in a centralized traffic unit follows recommendations by the county's Vision Zero program to focus traffic enforcement on the most dangerous, safety-related driving behaviors. MCPD also has department policies on various policing issues. MCPD's policy on traffic management, recently revised in January 2021, governs traffic enforcement and provides guidelines and guidance for how officers should apply state traffic laws. MCPD's goal for automated enforcement use in the county is to achieve voluntary compliance with speed limits, to ensure safety on the roadways, and to help reduce the frequency and severity of collisions. The county is permitted by state law to use speed cameras in school zones and residential zones, to use red light cameras, and to use school bus cameras. Cameras record traffic law violations, and the county issues citations by mail to the owners of vehicles recorded violating the law. Researchers have studied the impacts of automated traffic enforcement measures for decades, and data show that these technologies can prevent crashes, including crashes that result in fatalities and/or serious injuries. Consequently, Montgomery County's use of automated enforcement supports the county's Vision Zero goals. MCPD collects and analyzes many types of data to identify locations for speed and red light cameras, including vehicle speeds, location crash data, roadway geography, grade and elevation, and presence of pedestrians. The county uses a corridor approach that periodically moves speed cameras along a segment of roadway that data show as a high collision zone. This accounts for drivers becoming aware of static camera locations and modifying speeds only in these locations. In 2015, Insurance Institute for Highway Safety studied the county's corridor approach and found that it drastically decreased the likelihood of drivers exceeding the speed limit by more than 10 miles per hour. The county currently has 80 speed camera corridors that encompass 1,032 blocks. Under state law, the Maryland Department of Transportation's State Highway Administration must approve county placement of speed and red light cameras on state-owned roads and intersections. Approximately 17% of roads in the county are state-owned. Yet on this small percentage of roads, 58% of all serious traffic injuries and 56% of all deaths occur. While the state approves many county requests for camera locations, It is important to note that the state has rejected approximately 1/3 of the county's requests for red light cameras at state intersections since 2011. I'm now going to turn it over to Leslie, who will discuss the major report findings and the recommendations and discussion items.
Thanks, Blaze. As noted before, the council asked OLO to report on reassigning traffic enforcement from MCPD to DOT, including its impact on fairness and bias in traffic enforcement, safety and efficiency, and meeting the county's Vision Zero goals. In interviews with executive branch staff, we found that the county's Vision Zero coordinator works closely with both departments to develop strategies to further the county's Vision Zero goals, and the two departments work together toward the same purpose. For example, DOT is working to redesign the county's roadway network based on Vision Zero principles. To help do so, it is also jointly developed a design guide with Park and Planning to provide guidance to the government, developers, and community groups on the planning and design of county roadways based on Vision Zero principles. And as Blaze described earlier, MCPD's centralization of its traffic enforcement efforts and its expansion of automated enforcement are directly related to Vision Zero goals. And MCPD and DOT also work closely by sharing data about the county's high injury networks, which allows them to coordinate on traffic safety education, outreach, and focused prevention efforts. OLO spoke with DOT representatives about what traffic enforcement could look like if the responsibility was moved to DOT. And the discussions regarding in-person traffic enforcement in particular were very hypothetical because the state law changes needed to give DOT that authority would be significant, and it's unclear what the changes would look like. That said, DOT representatives reported that the department would likely make few changes to the county's automated enforcement program because DOT would have the same data and use the same type of analysis for camera placement that MCPD currently uses. And they anticipate that they would reach similar conclusions about camera placement. And absent a change in state law on where the county can place cameras, DOT doesn't anticipate that there would be any significant differences in the program if the responsibility were shifted to the department. With respect to in-person traffic enforcement, however, DOT representatives report that the department would likely not conduct in-person traffic stops due to safety concerns for its employees. It would look to increase use of automated enforcement, but enforcement of laws that require in-person contact, such as stopping impaired drivers or cell phone users, would no longer occur. One of the council's stated goals in the context of traffic enforcement is to promote fairness and reduce bias. And to put this in context in the report, OLO included a discussion of national research findings. And social science research on racial disparities in traffic enforcement shows that Black and Latinx drivers are stopped and searched during traffic stops at disproportionately higher rates compared to white drivers. Research studies often distinguish between the two types of traffic stops talked about earlier: stops for driving behaviors that are most likely to lead to crashes, and stops for other traffic violations that are not likely to lead to crashes, including minor driving violations, expired tags, and equipment malfunctions. And research that shows that racial disparity in traffic stops is seen primarily in traffic stops for these other traffic violations. OLO data analysis in our June 2020 report on local policing data and best practices showed local disparities in police interactions with traffic stops by race and ethnicity, and stated while disparities themselves do not prove biased policing, they signal that unconstitutional policing could be a problem that merits further investigation. And OLO has reiterated our recommendation to analyze county's traffic stop data to identify whether racial bias accounts for the disparities that are seen in the data. As Blaze said earlier, traffic stops are by far the most common reason for interaction between police and the public in the United States. Research on racial bias in traffic enforcement describes different strategies to reduce racial bias, and the strategies generally focus on ways to reduce the number of traffic stops that occur, including increasing the use of automated enforcement, reducing traffic stops for low-level traffic offenses, and removing traffic enforcement authority from police departments. OLO also looked at other jurisdictions that have been looking at their traffic enforcement practices. We found 4 jurisdictions that have discussed moving in-person traffic enforcement from their police departments to non-law enforcement departments: Berkeley, California, Brooklyn Center, Minnesota, Cambridge, Massachusetts, and Washington, D.C. Currently, none of these jurisdictions have implemented changes or provided details on how they would implement changes. And in speaking with an attorney involved in the conversation in Berkeley, California, OLO was told that, like in Maryland, California state law prevents Berkeley from moving traffic enforcement away from sworn police officers. Several jurisdictions have made changes in traffic enforcement to reduce the number of traffic stops in their jurisdictions. Examples include prioritizing safety-related stops over other types of stops, seen in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and Madison, Wisconsin, and prohibiting traffic stops for minor level offenses, seen in Lansing, Michigan, the Commonwealth of Virginia, and just recently approved in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And looking at making changes to traffic enforcement, specifically in Montgomery County, we're limited by state law in the types of changes that we could make. Due to state law, the county currently cannot move responsibility for traffic enforcement away from MCPD. The county can and is intending to expand the number of cameras in its automated enforcement program, but where we can place cameras is still limited by state law or by the requirement to get state approval for placement on state roads, which is not a given. The county could examine its own policies directing officers how to enforce traffic laws and determine whether there are changes that could be made there. Overall, the report includes 2 recommendations for the council and 2 recommended discussion items for the council. Our first recommendation is to continue funding Vision Zero and the county's automated enforcement programs. Since 2017, the county government has fundamentally refocused its approach to transportation with the goal of eliminating traffic-related deaths and serious injuries. It will take decades and billions of dollars to redesign the roadways. And in the interim, the automated traffic enforcement is shown to improve roadway safety and to do so in a racially neutral way. Our second recommendation is ask the executive to identify and evaluate whether there are changes to the county's traffic enforcement policies that could further the goal of equity in traffic enforcement and be accomplished without changes to state law. And for the discussion items, several types of changes to state law could help further the county's Vision Zero goals. MCPD, DOT, and the county's Vision Zero coordinator all highlighted some limitations in state law on where and when the county can place speed and red light cameras, and changes could help the county expand and strengthen the program. Several types of changes to state law could also work to reduce the number of traffic stops that occur in the county with a very low likelihood of impacting roadway safety. And we recommend that the council discuss if it is interested in advocating for these types of changes. And finally, we recommended to the council that if it's interested in moving either in-person or automated traffic enforcement responsibilities from MCPD to DOT, that the council should advocate for the necessary changes to state law. And that concludes our presentation. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen, and Blaise and I'd be happy to answer questions.
Oh, thank you so much, Mr. DeFazio and Ms. Rubin. I think the presentation was very concise and straight to the point. For those who've read the report, and I think it's just really great to see all the work that's been put into ensuring that we get, we have equitable traffic enforcement So I'm glad to see that. I know there's some questions up. So I don't know whose hand went up first because I wasn't looking at my screen directly to see everyone. But I see Ms. Branson and Eric. So if you want to go ahead, Ms. Branson, and then we'll move on to Eric afterwards.
Thank you. I wanted to ask you, OLO, I wanted to ask you, first of all, thank you for the report. And I wanted to ask you about your recommendation number 2, because I didn't see discussion points or decision points that had to do with that recommendation. So if you could talk about that a little bit, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. The recommendation there focuses on essentially, are there ways to reduce the number of traffic stops that occur in the county? That's the primary way that a lot of jurisdictions are trying to reduce racial bias in enforcement. So theoretically, there are ways that the county could direct officers to conduct traffic enforcement, not stopping for low-level violations, not stopping people for, tag issues and things like that. And so the recommendation is for the executive to look at whether, what types of things could be accomplished that way and, consider those types of changes.
And so your recommendation was to the council that this examination by the executive was possible, or do you know whether the council has taken up that recommendation and written or otherwise interacted with the executive regarding that recommendation?
Specifically regarding the recommendation, no. We just had a briefing for the council's public safety and T&E committees last week. There was discussion of the report, but the council's not specifically reached out to the executive about that point, at least to our knowledge.
Okay, thank you.
So I saw in the chat that Eric wanted Robin to go. So go ahead, Robin.
Okay, thank you. First question is really about the relationship between patrol officers and the central traffic unit. From the data you presented, the central traffic unit does about 20% of stops and is focused on the arterial roadways, really the state roadways. Do you have any data? So I guess one piece of information as we're moving towards this more automated approach is, do you have data on the number, on the percentage of stops that are made on state-owned roads? Because it seems to me that there's a understandable focus on that from a safety perspective, but from an equity perspective, the fact is that 80% of stops are made by patrol officers, presumably all over the place. So it would be useful to know where the stops are made. So that's question one.
I don't think we have that. We don't have that data available, but I think you make a very good point. Leslie, I don't think we saw that in Data Montgomery, did we?
No, I don't.
Yeah.
No, and I think just one thing, I guess, about the report in general is a lot of what we were asked to do was kind of describe what the process is like, how things worked, and there was so much to describe that we didn't dive deeper into a lot of the issues, like the question you asked. So that
Right. Okay. So my understanding from what you said, is that automated enforcement could be implemented anywhere on the 83% of roads that the county controls. Not the 17% the state controls or where they intersect, but on the county control roads, they could be put anywhere.
No, no, and for the county roads, we can only put those in school and residential zones. So we can't say, for example, put on agricultural zones or commercial zones. You'd still have to get approval.
Okay. So there are some limitations, but
Yep.
presumably we would mostly want them in school and residential areas anyway.
Yeah.
So there is under existing law capacity to substantially increase automation in that area and move enforcement towards automation away from patrol officers. I think it's the patrol officer that, you know, from our perspective, I think, I only speak for myself here really, because we haven't discussed this, but you know, we have very, very little data on what patrol officers do in terms of traffic. It seems to be something that's decided at the district level, and there's no reporting, so far as I can figure out, of what strategies are or what objectives are or what metrics are used to assess that. So I can see the CTU is taking a pretty professionalized view of what it is doing in traffic. But I wonder if you've come across anything that suggests that there's data or information at the district level.
We did not, but again, that is not something we requested. Like you said, I don't think there's data on Data Montgomery, but we specifically didn't ask MCPD for that type of data. Regarding your comment on expanding automated enforcement, the county is just in the process of entering into a new contract. The last contract is expiring after 10 years. And they do expect in the early years a significant increase in the number of cameras that they're going to place. There's been little placement of cameras in the last couple of years because the contract that's in existence was coming to an end.
Right, and so in the first 5 years, they're planning on doing multiple. I think it said, what is it, 25 cameras, I believe, speed cameras, and 25 red light cameras.
Okay. Thank you.
Eric, do you still want to?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Carlos, Madam Chair. The report I thought was excellent. Mr. DeFazio, Ms. Rubin, very, very professionally done, very well done. I've seen lots of reports like this from the government accounting office. This is really first rate. Mike, I'd like, if possible, could you tell us more about the Fayetteville, North Carolina intervention that in which the police changed their practices in order to reduce the disparity, the racial disparity in police-civilian interactions, on the assumption that the likelihood that the General Assembly is going to make traffic stops optional or take that away from local police, that's not something we ought to anticipate in the immediate future, thinking then about what kinds of changes can be implemented by the department, such as the Fayetteville intervention, might be helpful. So if you could share more about that, I'd be grateful.
Sure, and I'm actually, make sure I pulled up the right study. I sillily changed computers that I'm on, so I don't have it on my computer. But so the study that we looked at in Fayetteville was found in the journal Injury Epidemiology, and it was released, and why am I not seeing the date, recently, 2020. So what happened in Fayetteville, according to the study, is that they were having issues both with traffic collisions and with racial disparity in enforcement. And then they had a new police chief that came in 2013. And what they did was direct their officers to focus their priorities on the types of behaviors that are most likely to lead to accidents. I'm sorry, in Vision Zero is not accidents, they're collisions and crashes. so the officers were directed to prioritize those types of stops, and they used data to figure out where the most dangerous areas were, and they did a lot of focusing of the enforcement on those areas. And with the analysis in the report, they did see a decrease in racial disparity in Fayetteville. Now that the police chief that instituted these changes was only there from 2013 to 2016. I believe, if I recall correctly, the study notes that after that chief left, they reverted back to kind of prior policing and traffic enforcement policies. Chat to the study.
Yeah, and they really did a big focus on just avoiding the non-moving violations. I mean, they really focused on that, like the equipment issues, the expired, registrations, and they really focused a lot more on speeding as well. That was a big change.
Thank you very much. I think that's very helpful. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Oh, thank you so much for all the. Does anybody else have any other questions? I didn't see any hands.
Mr. Rick's hand was up.
Oh, go ahead, Mr. Ricks.
Well, I guess that when they were talking about the stops for safety, well, I mean, like today, an hour ago, it was raining so hard that you couldn't even see. Maryland state law requires individuals to have their lights on when they're using their windshield wipers. Mm-hmm. But I can tell you, I saw dozens of cars along the road with no lights on, and I mean, no tail lights on, no headlights on, and you couldn't even see 10 feet as almost as hard it was raining. I would want the officers to pull that individuals over for a safety stop. Those are common sense kinds of safety things that need to be taken care of.
I hear you. I know. What am I trying to say? I'm sorry, I looked at so many, we both looked at so many resources for the report. I do know one thing that I read regarding doing fewer stops or limiting the types of stops that were done did talk about, officers still having discretion, that if there are serious, dangerous things going on in the context of where the officer is in the situation at the moment, allowing officers to pull over those types of drivers in specific situations. So theoretically, you wouldn't have to, say, you just can't pull people over if they don't have their lights on. There could be, you could have situation-specific options.
I'm just concerned that when we started sending mixed messages on, well, stop for this, but don't stop for that, and stop when it's raining, but don't stop when it's cloudy, or or at night. There's just so many decisions that one would have to make.
I mean, just to speak to Vernon's point, I don't think anybody's expecting to move away from officers stopping vehicles where they're being operated in a dangerous manner. In fact, I think the point is to focus on that and have the officers really be looking for that instead of doing minor stops, which take up their time. It seems to me only sensible to be looking for things which are going to impact safety.
Can I I want to go back to Fayetteville for a minute, because maybe I missed this. Okay, so when these changes were implemented, their racial disparity numbers decrease. That's correct, right?
That is what the study's authors found, and I believe they looked at the numbers in Fayetteville and also compared numbers in Fayetteville to other control jurisdictions. So again, I can't do this study justice explaining the methodology, but yeah, they did find when there were the changes that were made that they did see changes in the disparity.
So what I also wanted to know, and maybe you touched upon this, but I just didn't catch it, that when this occurred, were there was there a corollary in what happened with, say, accident rates or something like that? I mean, was there a safety benefit?
I believe.
Yes, I don't have the number, Leslie, but like in the one summary we have, the traffic fatalities did decrease. I don't have the number off the top of my head, but yes, they did.
Yeah, so right.
And then you said, I think you said the state of Virginia also did something like this?
The state of Virginia in 2020, they changed the state law so that certain types of traffic violations became secondary violations. And what that means is that an officer, if you see, so for example, if it's a tail light out, an officer cannot pull over a car if that's all that the officer observes. If there is some primary violation that the officer observes, then they could also give a ticket or a warning to the driver for that secondary issue, like the light out. But so the state affirmatively made it so that there were fewer things that officers could pull drivers over for on a primary basis. And we actually looked, I think last week, to see if we could find any data on the implementation, but the law was just changed in 2020 and we didn't find anything talking about, what the impact has been so far.
And then you said, did you say Boston? I thought you said someplace in the north.
Cambridge.
Cambridge, okay.
Yeah, Blaze, do you want to talk about Cambridge?
Yeah, in Cambridge, they've looked into moving. I guess that Cambridge overall was just looking at moving the traffic enforcement from police to transportation, and they were supposed to do a report and more analysis on it, and nothing has moved since then. So they haven't implemented anything yet.
So as far as a jurisdiction that made a change, their data about results, Fayetteville is it? Is that?
No, we gave also like the example of Madison, Wisconsin. They took steps to decrease the number of traffic stops that were in Madison. And it's interesting because there was racial disparity before they made the changes. The changes that they made significantly decreased the number of stops that were made, but they still saw similar racial disparity even with fewer number of stops. So even though there was, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, Oakland was similar. There's also data on Oakland. It was very similar. There's still continued racial disparities, even though the fatalities and speeding went down.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I just hope we don't get to where the mayor of DC did today, announced that they're going to put more speed bumps in DC. They need to take out the traffic enforcement devices that are under Washington Circle. where you go in the tunnel and come right up out of the tunnel to a stoplight, and they got speed cameras there. That's a money maker. That is not a traffic enforcement device. Speed bumps have been
especially given they charge what, $120 a pop or something.
Right.
It's a lot of
But
money.
Also,
well, I mean, we can't get into the DC traffic enforcement as a source of city revenue. I think we could spend a lot of time on that. Can I just jump in here for a second? This is Caroline. I'm sorry. I really want to say I appreciate how this very, very enlightening report and all the work that commissioners have done on this. I did want to just make a note, and I'm not going to make this motion tonight, but I've just noticed that this is a great report. And one of our major charges is to engage the public in these conversations. And I think it's a shame that there are so few people besides us on this particular moment. And that, so I, in the next meeting, I'm going to propose that we go back to once a month meetings, because I think we are not doubling our productivity for our double number of meetings. And if we put our efforts into actually engaging the public to come and hear this great information and all of the great speakers we have come, rather than having 2 meetings a month, where we've obviously almost had a problem with the quorum today because many people are either burned out or finding this is just too much for their busy schedules. So I would actually, I think it's a shame that we have these wonderful people come and present us, and all of you who've engaged really so much with this data, and an engaging conversation. I just think we would be much better served if we went back. I mean, remember, we have a 3-year charge. We're going to lose more people. We're going to have fewer people attend if we don't actually refocus on how we reach out to the community, and making sure that we don't all get burned out. So anyway, I just want to say that because I think this presentation was so great, that I think it's worth just putting that. I don't want to make this motion tonight because I think it's not the right time, but I'll do it at the next meeting.
Thank you, Caroline.
Can I ask one more question? Sorry.
Go ahead, Robin.
So as I understand what you said right at the end of the last little segment, these places that have reduced traffic enforcement and refocused traffic enforcement on serious offenses, they have not seen a reduction in disparities, but they have seen a reduction in serious accidents. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And it depends on the jurisdiction. The data that we saw, the Fayetteville study, for example, did show that there were impacts on the disparities that they saw. Right. Data from other jurisdictions, you're correct, didn't see the disparity necessarily move, but there were significantly fewer numbers of people being pulled over.
Well, I understand if you're going to reduce the number of offenses, that's fine. You're going to get fewer people pulled over. But I was really interested to hear that you get fewer accidents, fewer serious accidents, fewer deaths, if you refocus it onto what really matters. Did I get that right?
Yes. And that's kind of, that is, Vision Zero actually recommends that traffic enforcement focus on just a limited number of types of violations, because the data from decades shows that those are the violations that are most likely to cause traffic collisions.
Makes sense to me.
Okay, and I see two hands up. Alicia, if you want to go ahead, and then Ms. Branson.
Yeah. Hi, there are actually several members here from the community that I'm sure would like to say something. I know Denise had a comment. Yes, no, maybe not. I thought it was a meaningful comment, but okay. Her comment was that the focus, she was wondering why we were looking at DC and that she wanted to stay focused on Montgomery County. So that is one of our attendees. And I think also
that was my comment, and it was brought back home. So I was glad to hear that. I am a public member who wanted to just hear what the Police Advisory Commission does. I'm actually also on the County Council's Advisory Commission for drugs and for alcohol, drugs, and other addictions. So we have an interplay with a lot of community partners who are also interested in what we do and how to serve the public. And I liked Caroline's comment that it would definitely be good to bring the public into this meeting and let them hear a lot of the information that you have to provide. And part of the reason why I wanted to be a part of it was I wanted to hear some of what was done, because in my county council, you know, we focus on people with drug addictions and other drug use. So seeing how police stops occurs a lot of times may affect some of the individuals that we're also focusing on. And I think even partnering with some of these other county councils are also helpful, so we can all help to serve the betterment of our community at large here in Montgomery County. So I want to thank you for allowing me to hear what this information is. And thanks, Alicia.
Thank you, Alicia and Denise, for the comments. I mean, the spaces that we create, right, for public comment, that's when we have to focus our efforts in bringing folks in. And while I agree with Caroline in that we have to ensure that the public is listening to this, I think Heidi also commented that this was said and this was shared this morning as well, or this was also shared with what is it called, at the public safety session. And so I know that there are other folks that are paying attention to this and advocates that are continuously participating and pushing for a lot of changes in traffic enforcement. And so, yeah, we have to continue in inviting people to all our meetings. They're public. I know Carlos does a great job in doing the outreach, and we've had an extensive conversation about what the outreach needs to look like, because even when we do so, it doesn't seem to bring the folks that are continuously left out of the conversation in. So we'll leave that conversation for another time, because obviously we don't have time for traffic. We want to stick on the topic, but I wanted to make sure that we do note that. So Ms. Branson, I know you had your hand up, and I see Eric as well. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I got one. I'm stuck on Fayetteville. So do you all know? Because the differences are striking. You know, one, especially where the disparities did not decrease, but the accidents did. Fayetteville kind of stands out as the one place where, you know, the disparities decrease and the accidents decrease. So my question is, comparing Fayetteville with these other places where the disparities did not decrease, do you know whether Fayetteville did something more? You know, was there some other law, you know, PSA, public service, did they do something in addition to this traffic stuff?
And to that, I think we would have to say, I don't know. Yeah, we don't know. In terms of we didn't necessarily compare the studies to each other. We were focusing on them more to focus on, you know, what did they do and what were the findings and that sort of stuff. So we did not look at them in that context. So I don't have an answer for that. I'm sorry.
So how will we find out? I mean, because if it seems like the answer is not this plus this or that, the answer is this plus something. And so how would we find out what the something is? I just kind of have a sneaking suspicion that in addition to this traffic enforcement effort, Fayetteville may have done something else. And so how would we find out whether they did something else?
Good question.
There's quite a good presentation that I shared in the notes. And there's relevant information, in particular in terms of the outcomes, on page 38 of that presentation. I mean, it's a bit technical, but it shows that they really pushed the number of safety stops, and they radically reduced the number of other stops, and that the outcomes for crash and injury were really substantial differences. So, so we can start with that, and I guess we can talk to the folks in Fayetteville.
It would probably take another level of analysis. You'd probably have to talk to all those jurisdictions that did it and figure out what the differences are. It wouldn't be something you can just do right away.
No, absolutely.
Much further analysis, which we didn't do in this, that was out of our scope for this.
Yeah.
Thank you. I had not seen this presentation. This looks really interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, it's good.
Thank you. I know, Eric, you had your hand up, but it went down. I don't know if you still have a question or a comment.
Nadia, thank you. I'd like to know if it would be in order to move that we adopt Robin's further analysis and of the answers that we received, and to send those back to the MCPD with a request that they be addressed.
Okay. So you want that as part of the, okay, so let's first resume this. And thank you so much, both Ms. Rubin and Mr. DeFascio. I think that, again, the information that was gathered as a person who's been advocating for equity in the county, I know that firsthand that traffic stops can lead to a lot of complicated consequences, particularly for folks that look like myself and that look like, that are Black, very specifically in our county. I live in Wheaton and I grew up here, and this is where a lot of the traffic stops happen, and it's for a reason. So thank you so much for the work that you're doing and bringing a lot of this information to light. Before I answer, Eric, I don't know, Alicia, what you had to say has to do with
what we just left. I just wanted to know how many of the persons on the commission actually submitted their comments on the MCPD answers that to Robin's questions. Did folks submit that to you all? Just interested to know. I know that I did. You and Dalvin received my comments.
Right. I don't know if there
this is part of the work that that we're supposed to be doing. So.
Right. And I think those answers to those questions, the questions that Robin had put together were really important, particularly when it comes to the work that we're doing. So did anybody else send it besides, I know Alicia had sent her comments. I think Eric might have sent some stuff as well.
I didn't, this is Caroline. I just had a chance to read them today. So I guess say, I think they were great. But maybe we should just give people a week or something. I mean, just so that if Felicia had comments, they should be incorporated, and rather than vote on Eric, or we could vote on Eric's fine motion and suggest that we will wait for further edits, and at that point it should be submitted. That if I can make an amendment to the motion,
okay.
If it's accepted by the sponsor.
Perhaps, yeah, that's fine. I'm willing to accept the motion. It was not formal. I was asking really if it was in order to begin moving to getting some business accomplished, and I'm glad that's where we're headed. I see that Robin raised his hand to respond.
I just wanted to make sure that the process is sort of fully inclusive here. I sent in some comments to Nadia and Dalvin. I know now that Alicia did, and you did, Eric, I think, right? But I just wanted to clarify a bit about this letter. So in the accompanying note, I think Dalbin and Nadia were planning to send this letter to the council, and I counseled them against that. I think that this interchange with the police department should continue with the police department at least one more round, so that they can answer our questions as fully as they possibly want to do, that we fully, cross our T's and dot our I's and have maximum opportunity for the police department to answer. And at that point, that's input into, whatever they send us back will be input for the hoped for collegial police department. Just stick. Alicia wrote, and then after Nadia and Dalbin have integrated that and circulated it to everyone, then we can vote on sending it to, I would recommend MCPD. Others may have different views.
Okay. So I think first the first idea to to have a response from everyone by Friday, it's better so that everyone has time to look at your answers, put together their answers. So let's vote on that first, and then we can move on who this is going to be sent to, because I think that's gonna warrant a longer conversation. I'm just feeling that's how it's gonna go. So if y'all want to go ahead and vote on the chat.
I'm sorry, I'm not clear on what we're voting on. What is the question that we're voting on?
Okay, so we want to make sure that what Robin sent today, and I'm not sure if you received it, Ms. Branson, but what Robin sent today, the responses basically that he had today, that we look at and we add whatever comments we have on that. We had discussed in the past that we were going to send a letter to the council about our concerns, basically the same letter that we're, the responses that we're drafting. What Robin is saying is that these responses we should give it one more round to the MCPD and give him one more.
Okay, so we're saying we're voting on whether PAC members have until Friday to say yay or nay, or add whatever commentary they may want to Robin's letter. That's the question. To extend the deadline till Friday. That's the question, correct? Okay.
Right.
And Nadia, the comments that I entered were in response, looking at the text of the MCPD response, not Robin's.
Not Robin's. Okay.
No questions on your excellence.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. I'm delighted.
My comments were purely to MCPD's.
Yeah. Okay. Got it.
So let's vote on extending that first.
Can't we just do this by consensus?
Well, we're ready to vote. Why don't we vote?
That's the vote part, I think, to reach consensus. If y'all want to just go ahead and do that in the chat really quickly.
Okay.
Okay, I think everyone has voted. So we'll go ahead and extend it till Friday so that we can have our comments, and then Dalvin and I can put that together. Basically, have one response from PAC for everyone to approve. Okay. The second thing that Robin brought up is who we're going to be sending this to, right? I think part of the conversations that we've been having have been to escalate, just because we have continuously gotten, I'm just reiterating the conversations we've had. Part of what we've been doing is that we've been getting a lot of pushback from NCPD in terms of their answers, or the clarity of their answers, or the transparency of their answers. So let's go ahead and, I don't know if anyone has a comment first before we vote on whether we send a letter to MCPD as opposed to sending it to the council.
I'll make a motion. I'll just make a motion that we should send the next letter to MCPD.
Okay, so folks want to vote on that motion, please go ahead.
Second it.
Okay, it's been a second. Okay. And one, two, three, four, five, six, seven.
That said, is it possible, Nadia, that you and Dalvin could possibly reach out to members of the Public Safety Committee comprised of council members, if they could perhaps come to any of these sessions, any of these meetings that we have? Because
to the so we can talk about that after we go over this vote really quick, because I think we had 7 ayes, 2 nays. Is that right? Am I right, Carlos?
I think I'm seeing 6 ayes and 2 nays.
Okay, great. So I think that's the majority. Am I right? I'm not trying to go crazy with numbers here today.
Yeah, I think so, based on the attendance today and people who have dropped off.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and ensure that next letter goes to MCPD. In terms of what Alicia was saying, we've had the conversations. As we said, we met with council staff in terms of having them being present just generally at these commission meetings, particularly public safety. They've said that we can meet with their, correct me if I'm wrong, Susan, with their, the staff that's assigned to that particular committee, to public safety. So whether that's their chief of staff or whether that's, whomever it might be in their staff, that would be the person who can meet with us. I think it's going to be a stretch to ask them to meet. The most that we can do is be present at those subcommittee meetings and continue to have the conversations with staff to see if we can meet with the council. Likely we're going to be meeting once a year, but I don't really see it happening. So I don't know if the ask is going to be like, we've continuously asked for them to come. So I don't know if it's going to change now. I don't know, Susan and Carlos.
I'm sorry, can I suggest that that on this letter that we're sending to the police, that we CC the members of the Public Safety Committee? Can we do that? I mean, at that point, we're not writing to them. We're not expecting a response from them, but we are keeping them informed. So okay. I move that we CC members of the Public Safety Committee of the council on this letter.
Second it.
Okay, and Alicia second that. Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that. That sounds like a good idea.
But I have a concern. Why would we send it to the council when the council appointed us to come out with a report? If we had some information that we were reporting to them from information that we've talked with the police department and all, then it should go to them. But just to CC them in on everything we do, if they got a staff, fine.
Yeah, I don't see a problem with the CC, Vernon. CC doesn't require them to do anything. And yes, they did appoint us, and that's just the point, that they should be kept apprised of our actions. And in doing this, we are keeping them apprised of our actions. They can turn a blind eye to it if they want, but our duty is to keep them apprised and to keep the members of the public apprised of what we're doing. And that's the way to accomplish this. As I said, we are not requiring them. We are not writing to them. We are not asking for them to respond. We are merely advising and keeping them apprised of what we're doing and how we're doing it. And I think that's totally appropriate for our role.
Yeah.
Okay, and again, Susan just mentioned that she briefs public safety staff continuously on the work that we're doing. So CCing them, I think, is not a big deal. Alicia seconded anyways, I believe. So if folks want to go ahead and, if is everybody okay with that? Robin, I think said good.
Sure. Yeah, I'm good.
Does anybody oppose it? I know besides Mr. Vernon's comment, I don't know if you.
I oppose it.
Okay. So.
Then we should probably do a formal vote.
Do it in the chat. Yeah, let's do that in the chat. That way we have a total count.
Did we lose Caroline? Is Caroline gone?
I think Caroline is gone.
No.
Okay, if you want to go ahead and finish voting. Okay, let me count. I see 6 ayes, 1 no, 6, 7 ayes, 1 no. Okay, great. So the motion passes. We'll CC the Public Safety Committee on this letter once it's completed. Okay, so I want to be respectful of people's time. I think it's past the time that we said we'd be having these conversations. So in terms of the letter, we have already agreed that we're going to send we're going to have everything together by next Friday, sending it to MCPD one more time, CC and Public Safety Committee. In terms of the pieces that we had to put together, each subcommittee from PAC for the effective law enforcement for all responses basically that we had. I think we gave people an extension till Friday, if I'm not mistaken. So if folks have any questions or want to talk about that, we can speak about that at the next meeting as well. Are there any other new business that we had to discuss today?
I have a question. I'm sorry, excuse me, Alicia. I have a question. The legislation for the creation of the Public Accountability Board or whatever it's called. I'm sorry, I can't remember the exact name. But the legislation where the state has requested or has allowed the counties to implement these boards. We received that from the 2 counties that I think who are doing it. It wasn't clear to me what we were being asked to do with that, other than to just review it. Is there something more that we're being asked to do with that?
It was just for your information, so you know what's happening at the county level.
Okay, but we have not, as a commission, decided to seek that the council move forward with that, with the implementation of the state law. Is that, I mean, that's accurate, right? That's state of play at this point, right? So I would suggest that, so I say all that to say that I suggest that if people have time, they review this, the Howard County, I think it's Calvert County, and you know, have something, have some kind of opinion about it for the next meeting, because I think it makes all the sense in the world for us to consider it and figure out, you know, what it is we are supposed to be doing.
Okay, and Nadia, Madam Chair?
I think she's
gone
in and out.
Did I lose her? Madam Vice Chair Dalvin, Also, if everyone could take a look at this, the Public Safety Committee's, their work session, which talks in detail about the creation of the Police Accountability Board, as well as the Administrative Charging Commission. It's in detail, September 20th work session that was also sent by Carlos some time ago, but you can access it, the full proceeding on YouTube, and it talks in detail about those two entities and what's going to be happening. And PAC apparently is going to be implemented in some of that, the board or the board and the Administrative Charging Commission. So.
Yep. I wanted to remind everyone that, so the next meeting, MCPD is scheduled to come and brief you all on traffic enforcement. So just wanted to give you a heads up. And then also that the PAC is slated to go in front of the Public Safety Committee November 8th, so in 2 weeks. So
when is the police briefing?
November 8th as well. So the next PAC meeting.
So the next meeting and the public health meeting are on the same day?
The Public Safety Committee meeting. Yeah, that's like during the work day when the council meets, or when committees meet. And then at night at 6:30, that is when.
I have to say that from my perspective, it would be a good idea to postpone our Public Safety Committee appearance until after we've finished with traffic, which will be soon. But it seems to me that we're getting near the end of this process, and that it doesn't make much sense to be briefing the Public Safety Committee on stuff that we're getting near to finishing.
I think it'll be difficult, and it's actually the chair's decision to make. It's Chair Katz's decision to make. We can run that by him, but the schedule is packed through the rest of the year, and then we go into budgets. So there may not be time to get you in if we postpone this meeting.
The question would be, what would we be briefing them on?
That's something that. Go ahead, Go ahead, Dol.
Sorry, guys. I've been on, but I've been chasing my daughter around my living room. That's why my camera's off.
That's good.
It's a good exercise, right? So so part of and I think it ties into the letter, but also just some of the difficulties that we've been having with MCPD. This was going to be our first opportunity to sit in front of Chairman Katz and the Public Safety Committee and update them on the work that we've done over the year, and also let them know about some of the challenges that we've been having. Because if you guys remember, what necessitated the proposal to write the letter to County Council, letting them know about difficulties that we've had with MCPD, is the fact that we thought that the answers that they were providing were a bit inadequate, right? So we're changing that, and that's totally fine. But I do think that at the very least, because I imagine we'd be done with with our thoughts on the recommendations from the audit, we can present those at the very least, because we have until Friday to receive all the feedback from everybody before Nadia and I turn it into a concrete document. Does that sound like it makes sense, or are you guys saying that you don't think we'll be able to produce a document outlining whether we agree or disagree with the recommendations, and then in turn we wouldn't have anything to present to them?
I mean, there are a ton of recommendations in there, and sorting through them is non-trivial. I'm just saying.
But the subcommittees were assigned, Carlos did a great color coding of, we're all given, we've had this for months now.
Okay, all right, I take it back. I take it back completely.
And Eric did point to some of the recommendations that weren't color coded and hadn't been assigned to particular subcommittees. And I don't know if he gave.
And just to add, I think once everybody completes everything they have to do by Friday, for at the very least the audit recommendations, right? We will have something to present to the Public Safety Subcommittee. And also, to Susan's point, if we don't meet with them now, there's a very good chance we're not going to meet with them until next year, like next fall. And that does put us a little bit at a disadvantage in a way, because remember, our charge is for 3 years, right? We would have hit 2 years in the summer, which means that we would have only met with one time during the process. We want to meet with them now. That way, if there's any feedback that they can provide us, if there's anything that they think to know, we have it now with at least 1.5 years left in our terms.
Okay.
You guys have done great work. Trust me, there's enough for us to present to them.
Eric has a comment.
Eric, go ahead. I'm sorry, I can't see you, but go ahead.
Thanks, Delvin. Would it be possible to share with all the members what all the subcommittees have prepared in the way of comments on that before Friday?
Yeah, me and Nadia's plan is to share that Wednesday, the 27th. I have it on my to-do list. So you guys will have it, and then you guys can see everything that every subcommittee has submitted. And then our hope is that then to turn it into a concise document so you guys can receive it on Friday so you guys can review it. And if there's any edits that need to be made, we can do that. Does that sound good? Is Wednesday good? Is that okay?
Well, I'm sure it's fine for others. It happens not to be good for me. I'm not going to be available Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, but I would have some time tomorrow.
Okay, so how about this? Because Nadia and I are not presenting till the 8th of November, right, Carlos? So that's 2 weeks from now. So why don't we, just to be safe, right, and just so that Nadia and I will get like a composite, like a Google Doc or something, like a composite of everything that everybody submitted by Wednesday, right? So just everybody who hasn't submitted anything, just make sure that we have it. We'll put it together into one thing so everybody can see it. And then folks will have until the following Wednesday, so it will be a week, to get their comments and recommend and all that stuff back to us. And then with the goal being that Nadia and I will share the composite document by next Friday, which is, Carlos, what date is that? That's the 4th?
Friday's the 5th.
The 5th. So we're just shifting the timeline a little bit. So Nadia and I will share what everybody submitted by this Wednesday. Everybody will have a week to review all of that and kind of just see where everybody's going with that. Give the all okay by next Wednesday, which is the 3rd, with the hope being that Nadia and I will share a full document with all of you by the 5th, which would be a couple days before the public safety presentation. How does that sound?
Works fine for me. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And Dalvin, I just wanted to say thank you. I'm sorry.
Oh, no problem.
I just wanted to say thank you to Carlos for the color coding, and we've had these recommendations for quite some time now. Thank you so much for that. And I wanted to also say we will all look at each other's subcommittee's comments with the caveat that we give deference to each subcommittee's iterations regarding their comments on the recommendations. I don't think it's helpful to go and try to redo another subcommittee's work or this is how we work, as the functioning body. So
agreed. And I will say again, there's a lot of really good work that the subcommittees have done on, and you guys know this. It's not an easy read. That document was not an easy document to get through. It is incredibly dense. It has a lot of material, right? You guys have done some really, really good work to parse through it. You have done some really, really good work. Now it's about us putting a bow on it and saying like, okay, this recommendation, okay, we kind of agree with this. This recommendation, not so much, right? Because then I think, and Robin, you made this point during the last meeting, and I thought it was a really good one. I thought it was a really sound one. If we don't get this part right now, come January, we move on to the next thing, right? So we're going to close the loop on traffic stops. We're going to move to something else. If we don't get the structure of this right, it's going to be harder for us to get the next step right too. So, and this is part of it. Part of it is us producing something cohesive, something that is from all of us, and something that we're all, even if it's not how one of us would do it or how two of us would do it, it's a cohesive document from all of us that we can present to external partners, okay?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, 6 minutes early. Please enjoy the rest of your Monday. I am gonna go put my daughter down for the night. But thank you guys for your work. I appreciate you all.
One of our meetings was supposed to be shorter than the other meeting.
Mr. Hicks, I promise you that I am working on that. I promise you I'm working on that.
All right,
guys,
everybody.
Have a great rest of your night, okay?
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
All right,